Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Just the Facts, ma'am. Can everybody hear me?
Tracy, are you muted?
No. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. So somebody can hear me because somebody's responding to me. Welcome to the show, everyone. This is Just the Facts, ma'am, and I am your co-host for the day. I am Tracy Lawrence, president of Heist Security and Insurance Services. How are we doing, Jane? Excellent, excellent. And my trusty partner in crime is the fabulous Jane Babcock. And she's got on new glasses and she's got on new hearing aids and stuff. Jane, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience, please, ma'am?
Certainly. I am a retired sergeant first class, active duty and reserves. We ended up with four DD 214s, totaling 8.5 years of active duty. And then a couple years later, and I left the service because of injuries. I was injured on a short tour, and then the unit was prepping to go to Afghanistan, and the doc said, "Well, we got to cut your throat and put in some metal, and you tore up your shoulder and everything." And the unit just went, "Oh, we don't have time. Here, you got 21 plus, sign here. You're in the retired reserves." I never questioned getting an exit physical or potential for military retirement pay, which in my case, because I was over 8 years of active duty, I would have gotten full retirement benefits.
Mm.
Yes, granted, my pay would have been smaller than a 21-year active duty person, but it would have been larger than a 21-year reserve person.
Mm.
So 4 years later, I heard about VA and I went, oh, I need to check into that. I saw a job posting and became an accredited county veterans service officer, which means I went through state and national training and attended training every single year and went through the background check and all this stuff. And 5 of the national veteran organizations sponsored me to the VA. They looked at my background and said, yeah, you've got the training and we think you'll do a good job at representing veterans to the VA. And I went, okay, cool. And that's what I did for 11.5 years. I filed over 1,200 claims and had a very good success rate on first time in claims because I'm one of those geeky people. I actually read regulations.
Oh, but that's why we love you on this show.
Yeah. And even if I usually remember everything, but sometimes you go, okay, I read something about that. I know how to go back and look it up quickly.
That's the key to a whole bunch of things. You don't have to know it right off the top of your head, but you have to know where to go get the information.
Correct.
To all of you people out there, log on. We'd love to know you're there. Please put your name, your city, state, maybe in the chat so that we can say hello. I want to encourage you if you have any questions. This is the place for questions because um, Jane Babcock is the person that's got the answers or will get the answers for us. And in here, we're not doing any theories. We are not, saying this might work. Hey, it's just the facts. It's no fake news around here. All
Nope,
right.
that's for sure.
Okay, so Jane has some things laid out for us. We're going to talk about, is it presumptives first, Miss Jane?
Yes. Yeah. Because
Okay.
that's pretty easy and it provides standard evidence and things like that. Okay. First off, what is a presumptive? Presumptive means that the VA has already gotten all the medical evidence and the research and the science and all that stuff to say, you know what? More veterans have this than their civilian counterparts. So, what's the common factor? Is it where they were stationed? Was it what they were exposed to in service, like Agent Orange or burn pits? Was it Camp Lejeune bad water? So the VA has they've got a long drawn out process. It can take 5 to 6 years to go through the process of even getting to the legislative committees that then have to go through their process. So it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years to get a presumptive on the list. And there are different categories of presumptives. There are presumptives that apply to all veterans no matter when they served, such as ALS. Lou Gehrig's disease is a presumptive. If you walk into the VA to file a claim and say, I've been diagnosed, here's my diagnosis, they don't argue. That's all they need, that you were in service and that you were diagnosed. Doesn't matter where, when. And
All
that
branches?
means that
All branches?
spouse is entitled to compensation if that veteran has passed from it.
Is ALS for all branches of the service?
Yes, it is. Coast Guard and everybody.
All right.
You
Okay.
know, what's that common factor? A lot of us suspect it's the multiple shots that we got at one time, but they're not going to spend the money on the research because it's a fairly uncommon disease.
Okay.
But if it's one that attacks you or a family, you're going to be devastated by it.
Okay, let me jump in here and say some hellos right quick, Jane. I'm sure you can see the chat too. So we're going to say hi to Tim Morris. Hey, Tim Morris. Thank you for logging on. We appreciate you. Hi, Rob. Hi, Tanya from San Diego. Welcome to Just the Facts, ma'am. We're glad that you're here. Along the way, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat and we'll try to get to them before the show is over. Okay, Jane, we were talking about presumptives. Some are for all branches of the service, and it takes a long time for things to make the presumptive list. But once it's on the presumptive list, how does a veteran or a loved one of a veteran actually tap into that?
Well, they have to first, A, that they served active duty, B, where they were stationed, which might have exposed them, and or C, the medical evidence to tie the disease to, say, their military occupation. Maybe it's not on the presumptive list yet. But radiation exposed, POWs, of course, each war period has a separate list of conditions. Agent Orange has over 38 cancers, and I believe it's 17 neurological conditions. The burn pits have fewer cancers yet because they haven't had the longevity out of service that they've developed these ongoing cancers that come later in life. But the Agent Orange guys, they've shown that, hey, 2 and 3 to 5 times as many Vietnam Agent Orange, because it was in multiple countries. Then they have shown that, wow, 5 guys have it out of 100 in the military population, but only 1 out of 100 in the civilian population of the same age category. So that's a presumptive.
Okay, so they get their information together, where they served, when they served, what was their occupation, and are they taking this information to their VSO? Where are we going with that?
Yes. You are going to want to go to a VSO because they're going to help you fill out all the different forms that apply to you. If you have dependents, if you have stepchildren that you financially contribute to their well-being, you're married to their mom, and even though they're not biologically yours, and whether or not you need to show that a previous marriage ended either in death or divorce, in which case they need a copy of the divorce paperwork in order to put the current spouse on as a dependent. And the VSO knows exactly what needs to go in to maximize your benefits. And so if you send it in a complete packet, it goes through much easier.
Oh, you guys, we have been talking about VSO this episode, last episode. Even when I had technical difficulties, we were still talking about the VSO the month before and the month before. And I challenged you guys to go and meet your VSO in your county, in your state, to introduce yourself and your loved ones.
Yep.
To get
32 states mandate that there be a veterans service office in every county. Now, granted, In really small counties in rural parts of the country, they may only work 2 or 3 days, and then they work 2 or 3 days in the next county. But like in my case, I worked in my county, I was the VSO, and then I had a deputy and I had an administrative specialist. So the three of us took care of the county full time. So I felt good when I only worked 40 hours a week. I was generally 50 to 60 hours a week. So,
Well,
but
we appreciate that. So you guys, if you haven't found your VSO,
shame on you.
now, yeah, and here's why. Not just because we're bringing it up every month, but it's important to your community that you get your benefits. I mean, and not just you. I said your community. Yes, it's important to
Especially your
you.
family.
Yeah, it's important to you. It's important to your family. It's important to the people that you may leave behind to have already kind of put these things in place. But when you start to activate your benefits or take advantage of what you've actually earned, that those dollars are coming into your community, right? And they are becoming a part of that economic cycle, and it's good. It's good for people you may not even know, right? Yeah. So
Yep.
now's not the time to be modest, and yes, it's time to know our VSO, and we need our complete packet so that if we are eligible for presumptives, our VSO can identify that and move on our behalf.
Yeah. So when it comes to applying for a presumptive illness, whether it's MS, multiple sclerosis, diagnosed within 7 years of military service, is considered a presumptive because it is a disease that takes so long to progress to the point of getting a diagnosis that they backdate it. They don't backdate the pay, but they do backdate and give you that presumptive, excuse me, if it was diagnosed within the 7 year period. So, what you need to be able to provide your discharge document first and foremost. Do you have an honorable or general other, which is considered honorable? General under honorable conditions, general and honorable. And other than honorable, can get medical care for presumptive illnesses and non-presumptive conditions that they are able to prove are related to service. But at first, they are not eligible for any compensation. That actually takes an adjudication process, which, if the discharge was incorrect, was erroneous, they didn't follow regulations when they discharged you OTH, then you may be able to get that overturned, turned into a general, so that you're able to get the compensation. So you've got your DD 214. Maybe it says where you were stationed, maybe it doesn't. Or what ship you were on from this date to that date. But it usually lists medals. So if you have a Gulf War medal, you had to have been there. So you're going to, or you have a combat device or things like this, those medals can sometimes be your proof of where you were. Or awards. Maybe you were given an award, or you have a set of promotion orders or things like this. If you do not have your DD 214 and a copy of your military record, your VSO can get that DD 214 likely within 3 business days.
Ooh.
Rather than 3 months that you might have to wait through the archives or your branch of service. A VA VSO, accredited VSO, if I was in Wisconsin and a guy came in and he said, well, I joined up in California, I could call the state of California and say, hey, do you have this guy's DD 214? Because most of the time when you separate, they send a copy back to your state of record. So the state would say, oh, yeah, we have it. I'd quick do off a form and I would scan it or fax it to them that I was an accredited VSO and here's my accreditation number, blah, blah, blah. All they had to do was go and get that document and scan it and email it to me. So sometimes I had them in 2 hours.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah. So, and if you've ever filed a claim with VA before, you would have submitted a copy of your DD 214, the long copy, the part that says Honorable General Discharge. Then the VA already has it. You don't have to send it in for supplemental claims.
They already have it.
Yep. So
Okay.
electronic lifestyle is getting better.
Yeah, it seems to be working. So for those of us that are people that care about veterans or have veterans in our families, if we think about what she just shared with us, Jane said that if they've ever filed a claim before, that the DD 214 is already there. So don't let that stop you from, um, engaging in the process, right?
Correct. Yep. You filed your first claim in New Jersey and now you live in Iowa. They've already got it. They just need the evidence for the new claim. So don't double your work, I guess is what I'm saying. And if that widow doesn't have a copy of the DD 214, again, if the veteran ever filed a claim with VA, whether it was for compensation or pension, they've already got that.
Excellent. Ms. Jane, I'm looking in the chat, and we have two questions about the nexus letter. Is now a good time for us to go ahead and kind of fit that in, or you want to get a little bit further down?
Yeah, let's get a little further. We're going to get to the non-presumptive stuff. That's where nexus letters may come into play.
Okay,
Because
we're coming.
if it's presumptive, there's no need for a nexus letter. Just the proof that you were in service during this period or at this place. So, the reservist or National Guard member that got activated and went to the Gulf War, you fall under all those PACT Act presumptives that apply to Southwest Asia. So you don't need a lot other than your DD 214. Hopefully that shows it. If not, the VA is going to get a hold of the National Archive and request a copy of your personnel record. And in there it should be your 2 Alpha, which lists all the places you've been stationed, and or copies of orders or any of that kind of stuff. Now, if for some reason they're not having any luck locating your National Archive copy, which I actually have a 4-year period in my service time that's blank because we had a bad UA who was stuffing records in boxes and then stuffing them behind the boiler. So, yeah. So, bad behavior on somebody else's part, maybe messing with your claim, but that's where you can get copies of anything you have or buddy statements from guys you served with. One of the girls, I actually used a picture of her. She's leaning up against the company sign, but with a cast on her foot. So, and you could tell by the surrounding environment where she was. So there's all sorts of ways of proving that. If you are looking to get a copy of personnel records or a copy of a person's military record, say your grandfather, if you are the most direct in line for inheritance. So if the spouse is dead, the kids are dead, if you're the oldest grandchild, you can then request a copy of the record. If they filed with VA, it's not going to be at the National Archive. If you send a request to the National Archive, they're going to turn around and go, oh yeah, we sent that over to VA on such and such a date in 1924. And they're going to reach out to the VA and tell the VA to send you a copy.
Well, what's the National Archive? You've said that a couple times. What is that?
The National Archive contains all the military records.
Is it a place or is it a system?
Yeah, there is a place in Washington, D.C. You can go there and do genealogy research and all that kind of stuff.
Oh.
But there was a fire. And when the VA can't find things and they don't have a record of having sent it to the VA, they often use the fire as an excuse. And it's like, wait a minute, the fire happened 5 years before I went in the service, so it couldn't have been the fire that destroyed my record. But it could be a case, unfortunately. Sometimes the people at the archive, they each get a stack of records each day, and they say, okay, you got to get these done by the end of your shift. Well, come to the end of the day, and they've still got, 15 pages
Mhm.
They may just open a box and stuff them in there, and they may be more than one person's record. So that has happened. Or somebody got married and changed their last name. Or they may have changed their social security number. People can be issued more than one social security number, and depending on what's listed on the paperwork, that's what they do. They try and get the name and social security number right, but sometimes they're just going off the number.
So when you're pulling together your information so that you can be considered for presumptive, you start with your bringing the stuff that you already have, and then you ask the VSO to help out where he or she can, and then the National Archive is like the next layer.
I didn't ever ask my guys to go to the National Archive unless VA came back and said that they had no DD-214. They had no military records. It happens. Reservists, National Guard members coming back from deployment, especially if they're being discharged from service or separated right away, they may actually walk out with their medical record or with their personnel record. It has happened and it will continue to happen, I'm sure. So if you have those paper records, make a copy, send them the originals, keep your copy. And then they have, then they know that it's, this is a real document, not just a phonied up copy. Okay.
Okay.
So that once they've got your personnel record, they're going to match up and say, oh yeah, I can see on his 2 Alpha that he was stationed at Camp Taji from this time to this time. Okay, now we know he's over in Southwest Asia. That's taken care of. Or you may have to provide that documentation. Again, like I said, you may have gotten an award while you were over there. You may have promotion orders showing you were over there, or buddy statements. He was stationed with us over here at this base. So those are important things. Once you have that military stuff, and remember, when you know you've been diagnosed with one of the presumptives, go and file that intent, if you can, within that first 30 days, within that month that you're in.
Okay, so say that again. What's the intent? Is that a
An
form?
intent is an actual form.
Okay.
I want to say it's 20 or 21-0449, but I'm not positive. Okay. But your VSO, they're going to do it real quick on the computer. They're going to have you sign just like at the bank. It's going to pop up and populate that form, and they're just going to scan it right into the VA.
And the 30-day window, that's 30 days after diagnosis? Is that the 30 days we're talking about?
Well, no, calendar month. So if you're diagnosed on the 27th of the month, try to get that intent in. Either go online if you have your My VA account, you can start a claim. Once that claim is started, then when they finalize it 9 months later, they're going to come back and give you back pay.
Okay, all right, everybody, if you're out there trying to keep up like I'm trying to keep up. So if and when we get the diagnosis, we're trying to get into our My VA account before the 30th of the month. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, okay. Before the 30th or 31st, or in February 28th.
Okay.
So, yeah, you want that. I'm filing a claim for ALS.
Mm-hmm.
That's really pretty much all you do. You fill in your name and stuff like that. And then as soon as the VA has that, which is seconds later, your claim is that date, which means that on the last day of that month is your first full month, whether you just filed the intent the day before or you filed it on the 1st. On the 31st of that month, that is your first month of pay, which means on the 1st of the next month, you would have gotten a check for the 31st of the previous month. So whether you get it in, like I said, on the 1st or the 30th, the last day of the month will then get you that month of pay.
You guys gotta love these kind of facts, right? This is good stuff right here. I mean, the whole month is still yours as long as you have your My VA account and input your information. Is there anything they need to upload with that, Jane?
Yes, if they have the ability to do uploads, which their VSO can do it really easy, and the VSO can do all your forms, your dependent form, your claim form. If you're filing for mental health like PTSD, you have to have another form that's separate where you input your descriptive of events in service. And it can be as simple as, I was at Taji in April of whatever year when we had incoming and we lost 2 of our guys. If you can remember the names, great. If not, just that information, because they're going to go and look at the unit information and see, oh yeah, they took incoming during April of that time. There's a traumatic event. Just the trauma of incoming, for most people, it made them fear for their life or life of the buddy next to them, which in that case, that's a traumatic event. And the next traumatic event may be something like, I was on a convoy when one of the vehicles got hit a roadside bomb. You give them a time period or something like that so they can verify, yeah, there was they lost guys in the unit, they lost vehicles in the unit, there was a traumatic event that, again, made you fear for your life or the life of those around you. That's the difference between just depression, anxiety, and PTSD, which is depression, anxiety, and the fear for life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Yeah. And he knows, the VSO knows all the forms that you need to add your dependents and do all the other stuff to show that you had a divorce prior to, and that this second marriage is a legitimate marriage and all the other things. They can take care of all that detaily stuff that you might not know to send in. And they're going to put it all in one neat package so that the VA goes, oh, look at this one. How easy is this? Here's the guy. Here's his DD-214. Yes, it shows that he has Southwest Asia medal. And here's his presumptive documents. And here's the medical diagnosis for it. If your medical care was outside the VA, please go get those documents. The reason I say that is, yes, you can tell VA, I was treated at Holy Family Hospital, and they will contact Holy Family Hospital. But if Holy Family Hospital says, well, we charge $0.25 a page, the VA will not pay for records. Okay. So you go to Holy Family or fill out the forms. I would get hospitals to scan me their release form, and then I would have the guy fill it out, and then we'd scan it back to them. And sometimes within just a few days, I'd have all the medical records in my office to scan back over to, to submit over to the VA. Because they're sending it to a VA claim, most hospitals and clinics will not charge you. You just need to let them know ahead of time. Usually there's a purpose of these medical records is to, get to a new doctor in the new town I live. Or in this case, I'm filing a VA claim. And when it comes to VA claims, most hospitals and clinics will just say, oh, that's what it's for. We give it to you for free. But they're going to charge the VA. So you go out and you ask for those records. You get those records. And like I said, if you're doing it with a VSO, if you send it from the VSO's office with the VSO fax number or the VSO email, then they'll send it right back to them and they can upload them into the system.
We're making some good progress on presumptives, everyone. Again, I'd like to encourage you guys to put your name, city, state in the chat. If you're having any questions, even specific questions, please go ahead and ask them. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, Jane's contact information is there. And it's going just about the right speed, Jane. You see it?
Yes, I see the scroll. But Danny, could you change it so every other one shows my LinkedIn account? Because it's easier. I am on LinkedIn 24/7. I get all the notifications right on my phone. So a lot of times I can turn right around and answer a question.
Okay, we got about 29 minutes left. So we'll see if Daniel can hook us up with a LinkedIn change right there.
Yep. Okay. On presumptives, we talked about what a presumptive is based on when, where, and time period you served, and or whether or not it's an automatic every umbrella of presumptive. We talked about evidence just being the diagnosis and the proof that you were where you were. And if necessary, buddy statements or things like that that verify. And then there's what they call add-ons. When you get a VA rating for a presumptive, most of the conditions are terminal type illnesses. Yes, it's a cancer. You catch it in stage 1 or stage 2 is no problem. They're going to get rid of it for you. But because during that time period, it has a potential of being terminal, you are rated 100% by the VA.
Presumptives are 100%.
If they are a terminal illness, such as ALS, such as, the expectation is that you're going to die if you don't get treatment. Okay. Yes, you're going to seek treatment, and that may prolong your life, and it may even get you cancer free. But say you have a lung cancer, burn pits, Agent Orange, and you go into treatment. So you're 3 or 4 months in treatment, but they're going to go for a year after that treatment finishes before they drop your 100%. Because at any point you could relapse. But if you've gone a whole year, quote, cancer free, you don't have any of the cancer markers, your blood tests all come back good, then they're going to say, okay, what are the secondaries? Did we have to remove half a lung and now his breathing capacity is less? Does he have a big ugly scar, or does he just have a nice clean scar? How good of a surgeon did you have? Did you lose all your hair from the radiation? Did you have damage to other organs like kidneys or something like that from the radiation chemo? So those additional conditions that occurred because you were being treated for your service injury can now be added on. So you might drop your rating on your cancer side down to like 20%. But now we're going to add 10% for the kidney damage we did. We're going to add possibly 10% for a scar. I have a scar up here on my neck above my collarbone. So that's a rateable scar. And I also have one on my forehead. You can't really see it. It's in my eyebrow. But because they're on my face, I get a 10% rating for those. I have 2 belly scars from service, and if they were ugly and itchy and maybe even possibly oozing because they didn't heal right or whatever, the VA would rate me higher based on what's going on with that scar and how long it is, and they have certain measurements that they have to meet in order to be able to rate these scars. If it were on my arms and then my hands, those are visible in ordinary life. So again, they're going to look at it and say, well, how much scarring, how much skin is covered? If it's burns and stuff like that, those ratings may be higher than 10%. But if it's not showing, it's on your belly, had an appendectomy while you were in service, that scar is more than likely going to be rated at 0, but it's there because if later you develop scar tissue underneath it,
mm-hmm.
and it grabs a hold of any organs and now causes you other problems,
mm-hmm.
the rating is already there and it's easy to add your secondary on.
Understood.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So also, if your service-connected condition, like Parkinson's or other neurological conditions, or ALS, when it advances to the point where you can't feed yourself or dress yourself and do things like that, that's called aid and attendance. That's another $300 and some that gets paid to the veteran per month. And the surviving spouse, if they're receiving dependent compensation for the veteran's death, they can also get aid and attendance. So, and if a veteran's widow was married to the veteran for more than 8 years prior to the veteran's death, and he was 100% that whole time, there's an enhanced DIC. So all this stuff matters, and that's where the VSO comes in. He looks up the veteran and go, oh, he was 100% for 10 years, and you were married to him the whole time. We're going to submit for the enhanced DIC, not the DSC. So again, VSOs are very vital, and they are free because your tax dollar is paying for them, or your dues to an organization like DAV or VFW. The big thing is, are they accredited? Because they literally sign a moral statement and they can lose their accreditation if they charge you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to non-presumptives, because evidence-wise it's similar but a little bit different.
Let me ask one question before we shift to non-presumptives. So presumptives that are that will eventually become terminal are rated at 100%. And then when the veteran is starting treatment, does that 100% come down as the okay?
No, it has to be a year after. Some conditions, non-cancers, will take less than a year to come down, because it's not hard to prove that the condition is gone. But most neurological conditions are progressive. They may start out at 30%. You've got the long form of ALS. In other words, it's really not going to show, except for maybe that little muscle in your throat that closes the flap to your lungs. That's what clued your doctor into looking for ALS. Okay, if I'm going to be 10 years before I pass away from it, the first year or two, I'm not going to have much more in symptoms. But as those symptoms progress, I can go back and say, I want an increase. And maybe on year 3 or maybe year 5, I go to the 100%. But cancer is an immediate terminal cancer. Any cancer that's cancer can kill you fairly quickly. So the VA says, look, we're not going to argue. Cancer is cancer. We're going to put you at 100% while you're in active cancer. We're going to put you at 100% if you have the fast form of ALS, because generally speaking, you're not going to live 12 months with the fast form. So, or maybe you got diagnosed with MS when you were out of service on the 5th or 6th year and didn't notify your VA benefit, and you finally file it on year 8, but you had your early diagnosis, and so your disease has progressed already. You may become immediately 100%. That has a slight variable, but generally speaking, a lot of the things, Parkinson's and stuff like that, because by the time you get a Parkinson's diagnosis, you're fairly advanced.
Okay, everyone that's on this call, that's absorbing all of this knowledge. If you know someone that needs to be on this call with us, and I know you know someone, we've got about 20 minutes left, and maybe send them a text. Tell them to come on and log in and join us, because if this information is being a blessing to you, it's probably going to be a blessing to them too, right? Our goal is to encourage veterans to get their benefits, right? We want you to have them. Get them.
Take care of you so that your family is taken care of.
Girl, don't make me
preach. And that 100% rating may mean a lot. In my state of Wisconsin, a veteran that's 100%, even though it's temporary for cancer, if he has 100% on December 31st, he gets that tax reimbursement. So maybe 1 year. But unfortunately, there are some odd things about some of the cancers that veterans experience. Agent Orange guys, their PSA count can start climbing even 5 years after they had their prostate taken out.
Oh.
Yeah. And maybe they suppress it with another round of radiation and chemo. Maybe another 7 to 10 years later, it starts climbing again. There is prostate cancer somewhere in their body. If they can identify where and they take it out, they'll do a biopsy on it, and sure enough, it's prostate cancer. It just might have been in their lungs, their brain, their spine. And again, they just reenact your 100%. So those benefits can be vital, and they can be vital for your family in the future.
Yes. Hi, Robert Petroza. We see you. Thanks for logging in. And, Robert's got a question about nexus letters. So I
Yep.
said, well, now we have 3, so I know that it's time for you to go to other than presumptive.
Yep. Nexus letters really don't apply to presumptive conditions because it's just a diagnosis and the proof of service. Okay. But when you're talking non-presumptive conditions, whether it's injury or illness, you're having to provide the evidence of things like, okay, if you're treated for it in service, they're going to say, oh, well, here's the proof that it happened in service, and here's the proof that it was chronic detractor to life. In other words, you've been out 40 years and you want to claim a bad knee, you got to show that I was treated for my knee in service, and on and off throughout the years, I had problems with it. Not that I was treated, but I gave up my Harley because I couldn't kickstart it, or I dropped off playing baseball on the company team because I would run the bases and my knee would give out. My spouse can write letters. My husband, we put a second railing on the stairs going up because he couldn't do stairs with just one railing anymore because he would have to pull his weight up because the knee wouldn't hold, or he would have to hold on both rails because going down the steps, his knee would give out. So you can show on and off conditions throughout that 40 years that caused you to have distraction from the quality of life or employment. Then the VA can bring it back to service. That's where buddy statements come in, and that's where nexus comes in. Your orthopedic doctor says, based on his military service and his statements from both him and his wife, maybe she was married to him when he was in service, and he came home and he was constantly putting ice packs on his knees. He was over in the Southwest Asia and he was bumming Motrin off the guys in his tent or his AO. That shows that there was an injury that sustained for some time and caused him to be weaker or whatever in service. So those personal buddy statements, the doctor reads those. He reads the veteran's personal statement saying, I filed for this claim based on this injury in these events in service or this exposure in service. And then the doctor is able to say, as likely as not, meaning 50-50. I can't tell you it didn't. It's not rateable because it wasn't service connected, and I can't tell you it is service connected, but I can tell you that odds are it's 50-50. As likely as not. That is the term the VA looks for in a nexus statement. And they look for, did the doctor look at military treatment records? Did the doctor look at other treatment records from other places? Did they look at buddy statements? Did they look at personal statement by the veteran? And if that doctor is able to write, having reviewed these medical records or these buddy statements, blah, 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 it is as likely as not. In other words, you can't prove that it isn't and you can't prove that it is, then the VA has to lean in favor of the veteran. That's what a nexus statement is. And a lot of doctors get I can't say for sure. Well, we're not asking you to say for sure. We're asking, would a reasonable person with this evidence, these medical records, these buddy statements, believe that, yeah, it's possible that this is because of your service? That's what they're attesting to. Is there a medical nexus or a medical connection based on these records and this statement?
Someone in the webinar with us said that they actually paid someone to help get the nexus letters, and I know we don't usually I haven't heard you say anything like that, and I've been hanging out for a few months now, so I know you got a comment.
Yeah, I do. Not all people are honest.
Finding it. I'm finding it.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but sometimes it's the veteran.
I see.
I file a claim for a veteran based on, back injury and knee injury and things like that in service. He walked into my office acting as if the act of breathing hurt.
Mm.
And he came in using 2 canes And he played the part very, very well. And we got him his service connection. It was a very high rating. And then 2 years later, I saw him jumping off his boat that was on a trailer in the parking lot of the marina down here. And I'm like, not many people with that degree of back injury and leg injury and stuff. And yeah, the VA had looked at his x-rays and all that stuff. They did his exam. And he must have played a good role. But there's also some of these claim sharks. Oh, you have ALS? We'll help you file your claim, and we're only going to charge you $2,000 instead of our normal $5,000. It's a presumptive. Like I said, all you need is proof of service and proof of diagnosis. They're not really doing a great deal of work for you. They're doing maybe 3 hours if you're married and have kids and everything else. So, yeah.
Is there a place where you can see online, or search online for presumptives during your time of service? Where does someone go to look for something like that?
Well, if you go to the VA.gov website, and go to public health, they're going to have all the different categories, POWs, Agent Orange, blah, 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 blah. Or you can just search 38 CFR, Code of Federal Regulation, and you can find anything that's rateable there. So if you put in 38 space CFR, presumptives, you're going to get to the regulation that is all presumptives. Okay. If you have a knee injury, that's not a presumptive condition. It's not based on where you were or what you were exposed to. It's you jumped off the back of the deuce in half and twisted your knee. So you can still do 38 knee, and you're going to get all the rateable conditions because it makes a difference. Is this cartilage issue? Did you have a fracture in the knee? Did you fracture your kneecap? Did you have a cyst, a ganglion cyst in the back of your knee, which keeps reoccurring and putting pressure on the nerves in your knee? So each different condition under knee will show up. And then you go to that particular condition and look at the symptoms for 0%, 10%, 30%. And you're able to determine pretty much where you fall on that rating scale.
Okay. So
again, people will be very honest with the doctors and, say, yeah, it gives me pain once in a while. It doesn't stop me from climbing stairs. But then the next guy will come in and say, I have to do steps one at a time. So they rely quite a bit on our honesty. And they rely on witness statements. Did you sell your house and move into a single-story house just because of it? Your spouse can write about how you were struggling with stairs and stuff in your other house and how much better things are. And they rate you based on the condition when they do their exam.
Okay, so Rob asked about, he says, well, what are the presumptive conditions for Army infantry? Is the answer we're looking for in that 38?
Yeah. No, there are presumptives based on your military occupation.
Okay.
Because it's not something, it doesn't affect everybody's knees.
Okay.
But yeah, infantry, battle rattle, the shoulder, the weights, the zapper plates and stuff like that in your protective gear, those all contribute to problems. So there's not really presumptive conditions other than what are medical diseases.
Okay.
But if you have physical injuries, if you have a military occupation, like I mentioned earlier, the guys that clean guns, they use that tank of stuff to dunk weapons in all the time, and that stuff has lots of carcinogens. One of my guys repaired the arresting cable on a carrier catching jets. Well, the stuff he used to do that maintenance every day was full of carcinogens. So when he came in and said he had cancer, I said, okay, tell me when and where were you and stuff. Oh, none of that applies. Okay. What did you do in service? Oh, well, I fixed this cable. And I said, okay, tell me about the chemicals you used. He goes, well, they were always telling us to wear gloves, but the stuff was so nasty, it would actually eat through the gloves if you left it sitting for 24 hours. And I was like, oh, okay. So do you remember what that chemical was called? Military uses acronyms, so it was like PD 680. I looked that up on the OSHA site. The OSHA site told me what the good stuff was and that it had carcinogens, and these are the chemicals that were in it that were nasty. And then I looked up those chemicals and got the report that showed that, there's all this scientific proof that this particular chemical contributes to the high risk of cancers of this kind. So I printed out those pages from the OSHA site, which the URL is right at the bottom of the page. So all I had to print was the first page of the report and then the page that applied to that compound. And then I did the same thing for the chemical research. I didn't have to print out the 227-page report, just stuff that applied to my veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And it had the URL at the bottom. So if the rater really wanted to, they could go read that 227-page report. And so when my guy went to the competent exam, the doctor just did the tests and everything to show how big his tumor was and things like that, and reviewed his medical records and said, yeah, this is the condition he's at today. He's in radiation, he's in chemotherapy. The doctor does not say, the examiner does not say yes or no to service.
Okay.
He just gives that rater what your current condition is.
Okay.
He can only bend this far, or, things like that. So then the rater takes that with all the other evidence and says, oh, well, he used this chemical. He had 2 buddy statements from on the ship that, yeah, they use this stuff almost every day. And his personal statement explaining the use of it. And then the chemical breakdown and the report showing the relationship, which is kind of like a nexus letter. It's the relationship to his exposure. And then they said, yeah. And yes, we agree. You have cancer. We have diagnosis. We have a status of you being in chemo and radiation. So you're 100% during this time and for a year after, to make sure you're cancer free.
Okay. So, everybody that's with us, we've got a few minutes left. You've heard Jane talk about how she uses her gift to you got superpowers. It's kind of cool to get veterans the benefits that are due them, and she's doing that in her role. She's acting like a VSO, which is a reminder that you need to find your VSO in your part of the country, and you need to get the process started. You need to know them. You need to introduce them to your family. You should start, getting your paperwork in order, all of that stuff, so that you can take care of you can take care of your family, and you can impact your community. If you have more questions, we only got a few minutes, so put them in there.
Yep. Rob is asking about dental. He had dental treatment and service. Dental treatment and service is considered finalized if at the time they had pulled the tooth, if they had done x-rays in service. Now this is where it gets tricky, because did they do x-rays before you went in service? Most people at MEPS get a pantograph done, which shows that there's no bone loss. But maybe you served 4 or 12 or 20 years. And at some point they showed a pantograph that had bone loss. You might be able to argue that. But having a tooth pulled or a tooth filled or things like that, they're going to say, we don't have any evidence that connects the bone loss to your military service. VA dental is applicable when a veteran is 100% individually unemployable or in the VRE program through the VA. Or you can show that your service condition caused the dental problem, such as one of my girls had mild silent seizures, they call them, because of the medication she was taking for her service-connected stuff. It actually caused the gums to draw back on her teeth. So the VA said, well, that's our fault because of your service-connected condition. So she got dental, even though she was only rated 60%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other veterans inside the VA, if you're in the VA, you can actually buy low-cost dental insurance through Delta and MetLife. They both went to the VA and said, hey, we'd like to do something for veterans. We have these 3 levels of dental insurance. You know, if you're single and you already have dentures or whatever, you're really not going to need. But you may want to have dental insurance. Or you have dependent children who need braces and everything else coming up. You're going to pay for that top tier, but it's at a lower cost than it is to the general public, just because you're enrolled in VA healthcare. Whether you use VA healthcare for all your care, or you just go once a year for that exam to keep your foot in the door, to keep access to the VA pharmacy, to do cancer screenings because you were stationed over in Southwest Asia. Because your civilian doctor is going to look at a 27-year-old that walks in and says, you know, doc, I'm having these breathing problems. And the doctor will say, oh, it's exercise asthma. He may not do any tests.
Go to the VA.
A veteran, and you walk in and say, hey, doc, I'm having difficulty breathing, or, you know, I have this pain right here in my rib. One of the first things he's going to do is make sure you don't have lung cancer. So that once a year annual physical could maybe catch things early enough.
Once a year, we love it, Miss Jane. We know that we need to do it. We know we need to know our VSO. We know, but we got our list, right? Everybody, we got our list, and we're working it.
And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I send you my VA 101 e-tools, which is multiple links to things like the dental program and stuff, the VA healthcare benefits book, the Agent Orange book, the PACT Act book, all these different things. And then there's also a link to find your local VSO. If they're on that list, they're accredited, which means they're free. Now, they do have claims agents on that list, but you are going to pick VSO rep, not the claim agent and not the VA lawyer. You're going to go to that VSO who's going to provide it free. And you may find that they're your neighbor. You may have sat in the bar last week and had a beer with the guy or gal. You know, so they have a boss. If they are not doing a good job, in my case, go down the hall. My boss is right down there, and go talk to him. That's why I used to send veterans, you know, when they would grump at me. Well, this is taking too long, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I submitted everything I could, and here's the checklist that shows it was all done, and here's the receipts from VA showing it was all submitted. I can't make it go any faster unless you're over the age of 72, or you give me a past due bill, or you know, there's ways to expedite, or I can show the VA that, hey, look, you're claiming something that's terminal. That request can go in as an expedite. And if they're stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, generally speaking, a VSO can get a hold of the liaison and say, look, I need an answer now, and usually within 30 days. As long as the correct evidence was submitted, the VA can rubber stamp it and say, yep, he was in West Asia and he has stage 3 of this cancer. Usually they can turn it around in less than 30 days.
If you guys are wondering if we, log on every month and just talk about it, but we're not living it, oh no, we're living it. I encourage the people in my family, those near me, to pursue their benefits. The things that I learn here, I try to share, try to get them to log on. I'm constantly trying to spread the news. And Miss Jane, you're living it too, right?
Yeah. And you know what? It takes the knowledge. All the stuff you heard about tonight, half of it's gonna, do a brain dump in the next 48 hours. All you need to know is the general benefit information. There is compensation, both for presumptive and non-presumptive. But evidence is the most important requirement. What's needed? Presumptives, not a lot. When and where you served, proof of the fact that you have this diagnosis. If it's in the VA, you don't even have to provide the proof because it's in the VA computer already. But if it's non-presumptive, you may have to build a case, especially if you weren't treated in service. Those are the most complex ones. And those are the things that nexus letters can contribute to significantly. But it has to be written right, and that's what your VSO can help you with. What goes in it, what it needs to say, how it needs to say it, what needs to be filled in as far as contact information from the doctor and stuff like that. But if you don't submit the right stuff the right way, in a timely manner, you may miss out on these benefits.
Oh, we cannot miss out on benefits. We don't want that for you guys. And this episode is recorded live. It's going to be available on the Ops for Vets YouTube channel to watch later, right? So when you're working on some things and you're thinking, hey, I think those ladies talked about that on that Just the Fact show or some kind of fact show. I want you to go
watch the VA healthcare and the compensation ones and the survivor benefit ones.
Yeah.
And presumptives, and there's still more to come.
Oh, awesome. So Ops for Vets, that's OPPS, the number 4, VETS, the YouTube channel. We'd like you to like, comment, subscribe. As my granddaughter would say, subscribe to my video so that you can revisit the information that we shared with you. And Ms. Jane, would you like to close out tonight's episode for us?
I'm glad to have had the chance to talk to the family. If you need me, reach out to me on LinkedIn or on my email. I will send you my tools, including my phone number. Text me and say, hey, I have questions. We can set up a time. But text me first, because I may already be on the phone, or I may be recording a podcast, or I may be down at the Military Influencer Conference teaching. So I may not be able to answer the phone. If you text me, I may go on calls for 2 more hours. We'll call you after that. Is that okay? You send back okay? Then I call you in 2 hours.
Sounds like a good deal to me. Thanks again to everyone that logged in tonight. Thank you so much for your time. I hope it was a blessing to you, and we will see you next time. Bye, Jane.
Bye, Tracy.
You see him? He's just as dead as we are. Now, you listen to me, youngster. Someday you're gonna wake up fighting on a beachhead. You pray to God some guy doesn't get killed because of your foolishness. You join the Marine Corps, Owens. We don't deal in pity and sympathy.
I try.
Try? We don't try in this Marine Corps. We either do or we don't. We don't straddle any fences, you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Every time you make one of these little mistakes of yours, you're gonna turn around and I'll be standing right there.
Needing money or anything, Man, I got over like a fat rat when I got out, man. I got my school money coming from the government once a month. I got my veterans check coming once a month. I got my 50% medical check coming to me for the rest of my life.